We're not seriously going to do this again, are we? In December of 2020, I came out onto this deck, sat on this very bench that I'm sitting on right now, and recorded a video I literally titled Sad. And I gotta tell you, I came this close to not even posting it. And in fact, ever since, I've been sorely tempted to take it down. I was going through a pretty massive funk at the time. I wouldn't go so far as to say it was clinical depression, but there was a good bit of seasonal affective disorder, with a lot of other circumstances surrounding it just piling on right on top of it. And although I did feel like I owed you some kind of an explanation, I still wasn't sure if posting a video in the middle of what I was going through was really the right thing to do. But ironically enough, all that negative emotion and self-talk that was going on in my head at the time that was preventing me from making videos was also trying to prevent me from making that video.
Oh, come on, dude. Why are you even posting this? It's not like anyone's even noticed that you've stopped posting videos. They're watching other videos. They've moved on. They've forgotten about you. And yeah, you post this video, they'll start thinking about you again. They'll start thinking you're pathetic. Look, man, you're better off just not posting this video at all. Let them forget about you.
Is your self-talk as nasty as mine? I bet you it is. And it's pretty much a cliche at this point that although women are allowed to express their emotions, men absolutely can't do that. But to be perfectly honest, society has, for both men and women, a list of emotions that are perfectly acceptable to show, but others that you must absolutely never show to anybody. The big emotional no-no for women tends to be anger. And for men, it's sadness. Because for men, to show sadness is a failure of character, showing a weakness that men aren't supposed to have. When men are sad and they express that sadness, very often they're told to suck it up, get a thick skin, put on your big boy pants. And so we just tend to take those negative, sad emotions and we just cram them down and try to forget about them. When you get a cut or a scrape, the best thing you can do is to clean the wound and take care of it. Sure, you can just slap a Band-Aid on it, but if the wound gets infected, all the Band-Aids in the world aren't going to fix your problem for you. In fact, they're more than likely going to make it worse. Being sad, but trying to ignore it and choke it down and pretending that you're fine doesn't help anybody. If you're running a fever because you have an infection, the fever isn't the problem, the infection is. In fact, the fever is trying to help you get rid of the infection. The worst thing you can do with a fever is ignore it. Fevers don't just happen on their own. They happen for a reason. But I've always been that type of guy who, whenever I felt something that I deemed to be inappropriate or negative, I always choked it down and tried to forget about it. But a lot of that started to change after I began writing my morning pages. Now, when I first started writing morning pages, I was a little leery about the whole writing stream of consciousness thing first thing in the morning. I've written stream of consciousness before, and every time I tried to do it, all these negative emotions would just start spewing out onto the page. And I always felt that that was a bad thing to let happen. And so I always, as a policy, decided not to ever write stream of consciousness stuff because all that nasty stuff needed to stay where I had put it, in the darkness and alone where it couldn't hurt me or anybody else. But just because I tried to ignore it didn't mean it didn't continue to work on my psyche from behind the scenes. But doing my morning pages gave me the opportunity to drag a lot of this stuff out of the darkness and take a really good look at it in the light. And yeah, although at the beginning, the majority of my morning pages was just diatribes of how worthless I was and how much I'd screwed up my own life. But once I was able to see those things for what they were, I was able to really know where that stuff came from. And in many cases, who it was who had said those things to me and made me believe it. And all that negativity that I dragged out into the light, that was the stuff that had caused me in December of 2020 to sit on this bench and wonder if I was ever going to post another video. But I never would have been able to do that if I hadn't been brave enough to look at my sadness and try to figure out what was causing it. And sometimes you can't fix something like that alone, and that's fine. It's okay to ask for help if you need it, but you're never going to get the help that you need if you're not willing to at least embrace the fact that you're feeling sad about something, or you have an emotion that you feel is horribly negative. That emotion comes from somewhere, and it represents something that you really do need to deal with. It took me a really, really long time to learn this, and I know it's always going to be difficult for me to apply this, especially when I need it the most, but sadness is not a weakness of character. And being sad doesn't mean that you failed yourself. Sometimes you just find yourself in a situation where feeling sad about it is completely appropriate. And you need to allow yourself to feel that sadness and not let shame take over. And if that sadness indicates that there is something going on in your life that you need to fix, you have to be willing and brave enough to ask yourself, what is that? To work on fixing it. And get help if you need help to fix it. But the hardest thing to do when you're feeling sad, but perhaps the most important and the bravest thing that you can do in that situation, is to understand and to accept that sadness is sometimes a gift.